Hey guys, it's me again, Miss Brown, and I want to work with you a little bit on the activity that you're going to do for me today. Today is going to be all about identifying the constant of proportionality in various forms. And also, while we are identifying the constant of proportionality, we are going to be writing the equations for the relationship. So we've already talked about proportional relationships in graphs and in tables and in words as well. So let's look at our first problem, or actually let's look at the instructions. Our instructions tell us to identify the constant of proportionality of each group, each graph, each table, and even in the words. And then we have to write the equation. Okay? So let's look at our graph. On our graph, we have on the x-axis is down here on the bottom. The x-axis represents the number of tickets sold. And then the y-axis, which is right here, represents the money collected in dollars. So we need to identify the constant of proportionality. Well, you might be like, I don't know how to do that. It's really not that hard. Here's what we need to remember. We need to remember that the constant is a multiplier. We also need to remember that the constant can be found by finding a point and then just taking the y value of the point and dividing it by x. So let's find a point or two on the graph. Here's a point right here, and it's important that we know what that point means. So I see 10, so that means 10. And by the way, it's 10 tickets. And 20, and that's actually $20. All right? If we wanted to, we could identify another point, although it's really not necessary. Let's identify this point right here. That point means 30 tickets. And $60. So remember, the constant of proportionality is a multiplier. We could ask ourselves, what am I multiplying the x values by to get y? I'm not sure if you know this, but when we graph on the coordinate plane, the first number is considered the x-coordinate, and the second number is considered the y-coordinate. So I'm asking you, what am I multiplying my x's by to get my y? What am I multiplying 10 by to get 20? If you said times 2, you're correct. And that's the same thing for the 30. If we take the 30 and we multiply it times 2, that gives us 60. So our constant of proportionality is 2. Another way to do that, guys, is to figure out what k equals y over x is. I'm going to use this point right here that says 10 tickets, $20. Okay? So the y value in that point is $20. And guys, you're going to want to include your units because the units are important. And then my x value is 10 tickets. So I need to find that as a unit rate. And my unit rate, I'm just going to divide. So notice that says 20 divided by 10. You can either do that in your head or you can grab your calculator. and go 20 divided by 10, and that gives me 2. So my unit rate is 2, but you must know 2 what? If you look at your units are telling you $2 per ticket. So going back, my unit rate is 2, but $2 per ticket. Okay, so let's go on to our next problem. Our next problem is actually a table, and we still have to find the constant of proportionality. So remember, the constant of proportionality is just a multiplier. In our table, we know that 8 weeks means somebody learned 16 pieces, I guess, of music. I'm not sure what they're learning. And then the next value says 9 weeks and 18 pieces. So we have to ask ourselves, what are we multiplying our x values by to get our y? Well, 8 times what is 16? If you said times 2, you're correct. 9 times what is 18? Times 2. So guys, our multiplier, which is the same thing as our constant of proportionality, is just 2. Another way we could do this is do k equals y over x. So I'm going to choose a point. Either point will do. I choose this point right here. And then the y value in that point is 16. But remember, it's 16 pieces learned. Don't forget your units. And the x value there is 8 weeks. So if we do some division, 16 divided by 8 is 2, but don't forget your units. So your unit is going to be 2 pieces learned per week. Okay, so let's look at the words. It says, Haruku took a total of 12 quizzes over a course of 2 weeks. After a school vacation, he took 18 quizzes over the span of 3 weeks. How many quizzes does Haruku take per week? If you remember the constant of proportionality, yes, it's a multiplier. Yes, it's k equals y over x, but it's also the unit rate. So in this word problem, they're asking us for a unit rate. Remember, a unit rate is a ratio with a denominator of 1. Turn around. So this asks me, how many quizzes per week does Haruku take? So if we read our question tells us that Haruku takes 12 quizzes in 2 weeks. But we want to know how many quizzes per week, which means 1 week. We can just do the division, or we could scale if you wanted to. I'm going to divide on top and bottom by 2. 12 divided by 2 is 6. So that tells me that my unit rate is 6 quizzes per week, or just 6. Okay, so now that we have the constant, we need to write the equations. So let's go back to the first problem and look at the graph. Okay, I'm right here. I'm looking at the graph. Remember, our constant of proportionality was 2. So the equation for that graph is going to be y equals, remember equation form is y equals kx, where k is the constant. So since the constant is 2, the equation is y is equal to 2x. For our table, our constant of proportionality is 2 as well. So the equation of that relationship is going to be y equals 2x. And then for the words, remember our constant is 6. So our equation for that relationship is going to be y equals 6x. Okay, so the problems in the middle I'm going to leave for you. It's just like what we just did. Let's skip to the bottom. So on the bottom, it says to first determine if each table is proportional. If so, find the constant of proportionality and write the equation. Well, to determine if the tables are proportional, remember we need to look for the same unit rate. So we're going to write ratios of y divided by x. And we're going to make those unit rates and see if we're coming up with the same unit rate. So let's look at the table on the left. Okay, I'm going to make my ratios of y over x. The first y is 2. The x is 1, and 2 divided by 1 is 2. Looking below it, my y is 4, and my x is 2, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. So far, so good. Same unit rate of 2. Let's look at the next one. The next point, the y value is 8, and the x, oopsies. Okay, let me try that again. The y value is 8, and the x value is 3. Let's check out 8 divided by 3. 8 divided by 3 is 2.6 that repeats forever, okay? So 8 divided by 3 is 2.6 repeating forever. Notice I have a multiplier here of 2, a multiplier here of 2, but a multiplier here of 2.6 repeating forever. Notice that's not constant, and really if I want to look at the bottom one, 4 times 4 is 16. Notice my multiplier is not constant, and because that multiplier is not constant, this table is not proportional. I'm going to have to erase some work here, guys, because I'm running out of space. If your table's not proportional, then there is no constant of proportionality, okay? So I'm done. Not proportional. And I showed my work. It's important that you're showing your work, guys. Let's look at the next table. The next table, I'm going to do the same thing, write ratios of y over x. So the first thing I have is 5 over 1, and 5 divided by 1 is 5. The next thing I have is 10 over 2, and 10 divided by 2 is still 5. The next thing I have is 15 over 3, 15 divided by 3 is still 5. And the last one I have is 20 divided by 4, and 20 divided by 4 is still 5. So notice we have the same unit rate. We have a constant multiplier of 5. So to identify your constant of proportionality equals 5. And then I ask you if it had a constant, write the equation. The equation here would be y equals 5x. All right, guys, so your task is to finish the rest of the worksheet on your own and upload a copy to Canvas. Hope this helped.